The crown was not changing someday. It was now moving toward a fixed and painful end. Inside the locked oak doors of the Windsor Castle state room at 3:17 a.m., Prince William stood at the head of the table, his face carved in stone. Phones were removed, notepads banned. Senior household staff sat frozen as the future king delivered the ultimatum that shattered decades of carefully guarded illusion. His Majesty has fixed the date. Abdication within 6 months. The transition begins now. Gasps cut through the air. One advisor dropped his pen. Another clutched the edge of the polished mahogany like it was the last solid thing left in the world. Camilla, seated at the far end, went deathly pale. Her hands trembled on the red folder she'd carried in like a shield. This wasn't a handover. This was erasure. But the real story isn't the date itself. It's the secret document from the 2025 private council meeting, the one that proves this wasn't Charles's choice alone. It was forced, and the man who forced it stands ready to become king. Let's go inside the twilight of a reign. William had known for weeks. The evidence was buried in the state vault under Section 47 of the Royal Succession Protocols. A single leather-bound dossier marked Operation Horizon. Leaked excerpts obtained by this investigation show handwritten notes in William's precise script. Father's public lapse at St. George's Hall cannot be repeated. The realm demands certainty. That lapse, 3 excruciating seconds where Charles lost his place mid-oath, fumbling for the ancient words he'd rehearsed 1,000 times, had been the final fracture. The late Queen's spirit hovered over every decision now. Diana's legacy demanded strength, not sentiment. William knew it. Catherine knew it. The people demanded it. But Charles was breaking. In the weeks leading to that midnight meeting, the king had been seen wandering the private gardens at Highgrove at dawn, muttering to himself. His private diary, accessed through a trusted household source, reveals the torment. I trained my son to rule, never imagining I would live to watch him take my place while I still breathe. The destiny I was born for ends not in glory, but in surrender. The urgency wasn't manufactured. Palace physicians had delivered a blunt assessment in a sealed medical brief dated March 12th. The king's cognitive episodes were increasing. The St. George's Hall incident wasn't a one-off. It was the visible crack in a foundation long under strain. Yet Camilla refused to accept it. Behind closed doors, she fought like a woman watching her entire world collapse. Sources close to the household describe her as ferocious in defense of the status quo. She pushed back against every timetable, every briefing box prepared for the move. Not yet, she reportedly hissed during one heated exchange. He still has time. Time for what? To cling to the title? To delay the inevitable shift of power toward Catherine? The loyalty of the staff was already fracturing. Maids who once bowed deepest to Camilla now turned first to the Princess of Wales. The power grab was subtle, but the humiliation was real. Then came the confrontation that nearly tore the family apart. 2 days after the Windsor meeting, staff began the premature clearing of Charles's private sitting room. Boxes lined the corridor at 7:45 a.m. Personal letters from the late Queen, framed photographs, even the signet ring case, everything being packed as if the king had already vanished. William walked in and stopped it cold. "Leave it," he commanded, voice low but carrying the weight of future command. "These are not relics. This is my father's life." He stood between the staff and the half-filled crates like a shield. For the first time in years, the son defended the man, not the office. Charles, watching from the doorway, removed his glasses. He stared at the page in his hand, the abdication timeline, and for a moment the room held its breath. That single act cracked the wall between them. Later that evening, in the private antechamber overlooking the long walk, father and son sat alone. No Camilla, no advisers, just 2 men bound by blood and burden. I never wanted you to feel abandoned, Charles confessed, his voice cracking. But I see now the impatience in your eyes, the same impatience I once felt toward my own mother. William's reply cut to the bone. I carry your training in my bones, Father. Every lesson, every late-night briefing you gave me as a boy. The date I chose. It honors the day you first sat me down and said, "One day this will be yours." That day was September 14th, 1997, the day after we buried Diana. The spirit of the late Queen Elizabeth demanded dignity in transition. Diana's legacy demanded truth over illusion. William was honoring both, even as it tore at his own heart. The emotional friction had been building for months. Catherine, ever the steady anchor, had been the quiet force behind the scenes. Insiders reveal she personally reviewed the transition protocols, ensuring Camilla's household role would be modernized, a polite term for diminished. The Queen Consort's worst fear was materializing, the younger couple consolidating power, shifting loyalty, preparing the monarchy for a new era where her influence would be ceremonial at best. But the turning point in that antechamber went deeper than politics. Charles spoke of his terror of public failure. I have spent my entire life preparing for a role that is now slipping away like sand. What if history remembers me only for the moment I faltered? William, the guilt etched across his face, answered with raw honesty. You will be remembered as the king who had the courage to step aside so the institution could endure. That is duty. That is love. They embraced, not as sovereign and heir, but as father and son. The rift that had defined their relationship for years began to heal in the shadow of impending loss. Now the clock is ticking. 6 months. The chosen date honors that sacred September training memory. A modern transition defined not by death on the throne, but by vulnerability and choice. The national announcement is being prepared under the highest security. Red folders are multiplying in the private offices. Schedules are being rewritten in invisible ink. Camilla's camp is in chaos. Reports from the household describe emergency meetings, whispered calls, desperate attempts to slow the process. She sees it as punishment. One source revealed. The final victory of Diana's line over her own place in history. Yet William stands resolute, Catherine by his side, the younger generation ready to carry the weight. But here's where it gets ugly. The secret 2025 document reveals more than just the timeline. It contains clauses about estate reallocations, household restructuring, and, most explosively, a review of certain deeds of gift made during Charles's reign. Sources with access to the dossier claim these clauses could significantly alter Camilla's financial and residential security post-abdication, a calculated maneuver or necessary protection of the Crown's assets. The palace officials are scrambling. Lawyers on both sides are already circling. The public statement will speak of dignity and duty. Behind the scenes, the family tragedy unfolds with Shakespearean weight. Charles grapples with the loss of lifelong destiny. William confronts the guilt of accelerating the end. Camilla fears total erasure as loyalty shifts inexorably toward Catherine.